Welcome to Meridian, the channel where we really cut through the noise and get right to the heart of today's most crucial data.
That's right.
Today, we are zooming in on Vietnam, a nation, well, teetering on the edge of a colossal economic transformation. We're talking about a country shifting, rapidly from just low-cost manufacturing towards a really ambitious high-tech future.
But there's a catch.
Always is. There's a ticking clock, a really high-stakes challenge, the tech talent crunch. Is this the launch pad they need? Or could it be a dangerous bottleneck?
Yeah, this deep dive for you listening is going to feel a bit like a high-tension business thriller. We've gathered a lot of intelligence.
What have we got?
Confidential salary reports, deep FDI analysis, that's foreign direct investment, even some internal government documents.
Wow.
Our mission really is to dissect all this data. We want to uncover if Vietnam is genuinely on the brink of becoming Asia's next innovation leader, or if its bold ambitions are, teetering on a critical dependency. You're going to hear two very conflicting viewpoints. And trust us, the stakes, they couldn't be higher for the global tech scene.
Okay, so we're pulling insights from all over, giving you that full 360-degree view. We've got official reports on average salaries, cost of living for 2025.
Crucial context.
Deep dives into that FDI, specifically how it's shifting towards high-tech, detailed IT labor market analysis, even specific salaries for AI engineers.
Yeah, the nitty-gritty.
And we didn't stop there. We've got fascinating perspectives on Vietnam's startup scene, the government's big plans to build a modern workforce. It's all here.
So let's set that scene, because it is dramatic.
It really is. Vietnam is booming, one of Southeast Asia's fastest-growing economies, acting like a magnet for foreign businesses, for job seekers.
The numbers back it up.
Absolutely. Average monthly salary,
Yeah.
around 14.9 million VND, roughly $600 US, but that's just the average.
Right.
A baseline.
The action is elsewhere.
Exactly. We're seeing explosive growth in specific sectors. Software development, IT, finance, BPO business process outsourcing. Salaries there are surging because the demand for skilled workers is intense.
Yeah, especially in the big cities.
Hanoi, Ho Chi Minh City, you're looking at 15 million to 35 million VND per month. And companies are throwing in perks. Health insurance, bonuses, even housing allowances.
They have to compete.
And the government support for job creation.
Yeah.
It's created this remarkably stable business environment. It's drawing people in.
And what's really fueling this surge, it's a strategic pivot, a deliberate shift in FDI.
Moving beyond cheap labor.
Precisely. Vietnam is actively courting green FDI investments in sustainable, high-tech projects and other cutting-edge tech. We're seeing huge global players jump in.
Like who?
Wistron New Web, a key SpaceX supplier, just put another $30 million into their Vietnamese operations. You've got South Korean giants like Samsung, LG. They're eyeing massive opportunities in AI, semiconductors, green energy.
Samsung's impact alone is huge, isn't it?
Yeah. Over 900,000 jobs catalyzed through South Korean firms. This isn't just about making things anymore. It's about trying to become a digital leader.
And the government's helping.
They're slashing red tape, green lane processes, cutting approval times for high-tech projects down to just 15 days. There's even an investment support fund for big tech projects.
Financial backing, too.
For training, infrastructure,
Yeah.
Product incentives. Yeah. And the proof. FDI hit $6.9 billion in the first 2 months of 2025. That's up 35.5% year over year.
Wow.
It really sounds like a perfect storm of opportunity, doesn't it?
It does. So on the surface, Vietnam's on this hyper-fast track.
Yeah.
FDI flooding in, salaries climbing, government backing. It looks golden. But here's where our thriller gets intense. Because there are two dramatically different ways to read this data. Two conflicting visions. Is this rapid growth a catalyst for real transformation?
Or is it masking a crisis, a structural dependency?
Exactly. Now, before we dive deeper into this high-stakes debate, if you're finding this deep dive on Meridian valuable, please take just a second to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us bring you more explorations like this.
Definitely helps us keep digging.
Okay, so let's start with the optimistic view. Let's call it Amelia's lens.
The positive spin.
She argues this talent shortage, painful now, yes, but it's actually proof positive of Vietnam's rapid climb up the global tech value chain.
How so?
Well, think about it. The massive FDI into R&D, into chip production, Samsung's huge new R&D center in Hanoi, Amcor's $1.6 billion semiconductor packaging factory.
Big commitments.
These aren't just investments, they're massive signals of global confidence. And from this viewpoint, rising wages. That's a good thing.
Right, attracts talent.
It acts like a magnet, pulls Vietnamese talent back from overseas, stops the brain drain. And this fierce competition forces universities, forces companies to seriously upgrade their training.
Creates pressure for improvement.
And Vietnam's digital economy is forecast to hit $43 billion by 2025. Incredible. So this engineer shortage, Amelia says, it's just the pressure needed to forge a truly skilled workforce.
Turning Vietnam into an innovation hub.
That owns its own intellectual property.
Yeah.
Not just an assembly line. It's growing pains, she'd say, not a fatal flaw.
And there's data to back that up.
Oh yeah, the IT sector. Projected to need 700,000 people by end of 2025. They only have about 530,000 now. That's a huge gap.
Driving up salaries.
Exactly. AI engineers hitting $2,380 a month, maybe even $3,000 for niche experts. It's a gold rush for talent.
And the government's role.
They're not sitting back.
Yeah.
There's a high-tech human resources training project aiming for 80,000 ICT grads a year by 2030, 8,000 AI grads. A fifth with advanced degrees.
Ambitious targets.
They've eased visa rules for foreign experts, experience counts, not just degrees. They launched a plan last year to recruit 100 top-tier AI specialists globally.
Pulling in outside help.
Plus, a new U.S.-Vietnam initiative aims to train 50,000 semiconductor engineers by 2030. That's a massive leap from the few thousand they have today.
That partnership is significant.
And here's a fascinating detail. Vietnam's PSI scores those international student tests. They're nearly matching developed nations like France. That shows a strong educational foundation.
Okay, that's a compelling, optimistic case. But now, let's pivot sharply. Let's look through David's lens. This is where the tension really ramps up.
The realist or maybe pessimist view?
David sees this talent crunch not as progress, but as a stark warning sign, a sign of structural dependency. Meaning, he argues much of this boom is just foreign companies exploiting Vietnam's still relatively cheap and very young labor force.
But it's high-tech investment.
Listen to this fact. Only 5,000 Vietnamese engineers work in actual chip design, mostly for foreign firms. And only 500 new chip engineers graduate domestically each year.
That is a small number compared to the need.
It points to a deep, dangerous skills deficit. And crucially, David asserts, the intellectual property, the core know-how, it stays in foreign hands. Vietnam provides the labor, the land.
So a sophisticated assembly line, basically.
That's the fear. And if labor costs keep rising faster than productivity gains, Vietnam could lose its competitive edge without having built its own innovation base.
Ouch. What about local companies?
David argues local startups are failing to retain talent. They can't compete with the salaries the big multinationals offer. This isn't just a hiccup. It means homegrown innovation could just stagnate.
Leaving them reliant on the big players indefinitely.
Exactly. The high-tech mirage. Looks impressive on paper, but underneath. Still dependent on external brains, just more expensive now.
Is there data supporting this view?
Yes. A report from March 2025 showed IT hiring demand actually declined 2% in early 2025 compared to 2024, even as the number of job seekers jumped 18%. More competition for fewer new spots, relatively speaking.
That's counterintuitive to the boom narrative.
And remember those 57,000 IT grads each year? Sources say barely 30% have industry-ready skills, tens of thousands essentially unemployable without more training.
So the pipeline isn't producing ready talent.
Which hurts local startups operating on razor-thin budgets. They say hiring experienced developers is a difficult problem. They train fresh grads, then risk losing them to the FDI giants.
It's a tough cycle.
And a 2018 survey found over half of Vietnam's AI blockchain engineers would move abroad if they could. Brain drain potential is still high.
And the R&D investment.
This is key for David's argument. Only 5.4% of total FDI goes into R&D. That's low. It suggests the focus is still heavily on assembly and manufacturing, not deep innovation. A critical red flag.
So Amelia, crucible for growth, David?
Yeah.
A dependency trap. The government's throwing resources at it, training, degrees, attracting talent. But is it enough? Is it fast enough?
David would say the core issue isn't just graduate numbers, it's the quality. You have 400,000 STEM grads a year? Great. But if less than 30% are job-ready in AI, semiconductors, cybersecurity...
It's a gap in capability.
A profound skill gap. You can lure firms with tax breaks, sure, but if the local talent isn't truly capable at the highest levels, companies will just bring in their own people. Or eventually, maybe even move on.
It puts talented Vietnamese engineers in a tough spot too, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Balancing local prospects versus global opportunities.
Absolutely.
But the investment is happening. NVIDIA calling Vietnam its second homeland, putting in $250 million. Samsung, Intel, Qualcomm, they're all there. That's a massive vote of confidence, isn't it? They must believe Vietnam could bridge the gap.
It's a vote of confidence in the potential and the current assembly capabilities.
Microsoft's building R&D teams in Hanoi and HCMC. That feels like organic growth moving up the value chain.
It's organic assembly, though. Let's be precise. Intel's biggest global test and assembly factory? It's in Vietnam. ATP assembly, testing, packaging. That's downstream work.
Not the core design.
The high-value, high-IP chip design work, still mostly done elsewhere. Producing 500 qualified semiconductor design engineers a year when you need 50,000.
It's a staggering deficit.
It risks locking them into that lower value position, even if it's labeled high-tech. It's like owning the factory floor, but not the blueprints.
Okay, but wage increases have to drive change, right? Competition is fierce. Wages in tech are jumping 5–10% a year, sometimes 15% plus.
That's significant.
That's a huge incentive for young people. It will push universities to adapt. It creates a better quality of life. A mid-range budget in the big cities is 15–25 million VND. Entry-level IT jobs pay that or more. It's an economic escalator.
Escalator, maybe, but one with missing steps. And it's not just about cost of living being lower. The salaries, while rising, are still way lower than regional hubs like Singapore.
So the brain drain risk remains.
It absolutely does. Plus, you're seeing administrative hurdles, land shortages. HCMC saw FDI plummet 39.5% in 2024. That's not just a growing pain, that's a major obstacle.
Are reforms keeping pace?
That's the multi-billion-dollar question, isn't it? Are they moving fast enough for this explosive industry? It feels like a high-stakes game of musical chairs.
It's definitely a race against time, I agree. But the ambition is undeniable. The government sees the problem. They're trying for that one-stop shop for investors, better IP protection, diversifying energy.
Infrastructure is still a constraint.
Yeah.
Energy reliability, too.
They're even pushing new roles like AI ethics officers. This is a country actively trying to engineer its own escape velocity to break free. The question for you, the observer, is, are you willing to bet on this drama unfolding successfully?
It's quite the gamble.
And if you are captivated by Vietnam's high-tech race, please show your support. Hit that like button, subscribe to Meridian. We're really just scratching the surface here.
Absolutely. What's clear, though, is that Vietnam is at a truly critical juncture, a crossroads.
Yeah.
The huge FDI influx, the government's big goals, they paint this picture of a nation genuinely poised for innovation leadership. But these underlying structural issues, that persistent qualitative talent gap, the regulatory complexities, the fundamental challenge of actually owning the intellectual property, these are significant, potentially crippling threats.
It's dynamic, though. Wages are rising. Demand for high-skilled roles is undeniable.
No question the market is hot.
So what does this all mean for you, our listener? Vietnam's journey, it's really a microcosm of this global shift towards tech-driven economies.
You see the same themes playing out elsewhere.
That fierce competition for talent, the delicate dance between foreign investment and homegrown innovation, that constant race between policy and market demand.
It's all there.
Will Vietnam pull it off? Will they successfully transition to a self-sufficient innovation hub? Or will they remain a highly efficient but ultimately dependent high-tech assembly line?
Forever reliant on external IP.
The outcome. It's still an unsettled drama, a nail-biting economic thriller really still being written. And you, the informed observer, you're watching it unfold in real time.
Its story will definitely keep tracking.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining us on this thrilling deep dive on Meridian. Don't miss our next deep dive, and please be sure to like and subscribe to stay informed and ahead of the curve.
If you want more no-nonsense stories about power, money, and the systems behind them, subscribe to Meridian channel.